Good morning to all. Welcome, big welcome to all to this Government Aftershock Roundtable. My name is Elsa Pilichowski and I'm the Director for Public Governance at the OECD. Welcome to this roundtable discussion. It's called Waking Up to a New Reality, What a Pandemic, and especially obviously this pandemic tells us about the practice of government, a very important theme for the future. I would like to introduce our high-level panelists from this morning, whom I thank greatly for attending this session this morning, where the OECD is very grateful, and thank you very much. So we have first Ms. Maia Tskitishvili, Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Regional Development and Infrastructure from Georgia. We have Mr. Boštjan Koritnik, Minister of Public Administration of Slovenia. Welcome. We have Ms. Sindisiwe Chikunga, Deputy Minister of Public Service and Administration in South Africa. Welcome, Deputy Minister. And we have Ms. Maria Fonseca, Secretary of State for Innovation and Administrative Modernization in Portugal. Very big welcome to you as well, Ms. Secretary of State. Today's forum, of course, comes after a series of 65 regional and thematic events yesterday around the globe on the topic of rethinking and rebuilding through innovation. Together, I mean, this is an opportunity for us to take stock, to reflect on what has worked, what has not worked, and what we might be missing today. This session will explore, of course, how governments have discovered, what governments have discovered about themselves and what they have learned, what they keep learning, what they will continue to be learning in the months to come, as the impact of the pandemic continues to manifest. Of course, I would like to begin with, and I'm kindly asking the team secretariat we would like to offer a poll for our audience to consider during the discussion, and to which we will come back at the end with some results. So if panel support could come up with the poll on the screen, but otherwise, just to let you know, the questions are as follows: which themes have emerged through the crisis as priority areas for government in your country? Digitalization of government services, introduction of new social policy, for example, universal basic income, citizen participation in decision-making, data governance and privacy, intergovernmental cooperation at all levels, municipal, regional, federal, etc., cross-sectoral collaboration in policy and service delivery, or other issues. I understand that now the poll is now visible to all viewers. I also encourage all viewers to take part in the chat and to add any questions in the questions column on the platform. You can also tweet about the event at #GovAftershock. I'd like now to turn to each of our esteemed panelists today and ask them to briefly introduce themselves and share a little about what it's been like for their responsive countries to wake up to a new reality, wake up to this new reality that we're all facing now. Maybe we'll start with Ms. Tskitishvili. That is okay with you.
With pleasure. Good morning to all the participants and attendees of the conference, and thank you to OECD for finding the opportunity in these very difficult times to make this very important events, which provide us with opportunity to share our experiences. So, well, really, the post-pandemic times and times of pandemic was really very difficult for all of us, and many of the government policies actually undergo through the very important tests in this changed reality. And what in Georgia was very important to see for us that we could actually check whether our policies whether in line with the priorities of the country development and whether they proved to be effective. And I can say that based on our Georgian experience, as you know, Georgia is a country which is still in developing phase. Our economy is not that strong, but all the priorities that we had, both in the digitalization of e-services, development of e-governance as a whole, focusing on the strengthening of our local authorities and decentralization efforts, development of our and helping from the government side to small businesses to develop themselves and promote the local production, both in agriculture and in other areas. Also, many efforts that we spent for the universal health care and investments in that field. So all of them proved to be effective and really helped us to be very successful during the first phase of the pandemic management. As these coordinated efforts of the government and public administration as a whole, of course, make big changes and big contribution to the results that we had during the first wave. As in many countries, we now have the second wave, and of course, we already prepared ourselves better for the second wave as well. And we also hope to be in line with expectations of our society.
Thank you very much, Minister. Mr. Boštjan Koritnik, maybe you want to give a few words about yourself and what you have learned.
Thank you. Good morning to all, our moderator, my colleagues on the round table, and our virtual audience. Thank you for having me at this important event that will hopefully shed some light on our future steps. The experience of dealing with the epidemic is a major challenge for all segments of society. In addition to having the responsibility as a government to take care of the economy and maintain the well-being of our citizens, the crisis also offers an opportunity to learn about the system, its purpose, action, values, and the opportunity to look within. The purpose of the Ministry of Public Administration is, among other things, to take care of the system of our civil servants, their growth and competences, and to obtain the information of the advantages and disadvantages of work at a time of crisis. We turned to the greatest experts, so to the civil servants in the state administration. In October, we conducted a survey in 36 state administration bodies on the work of the civil servants during the crisis, so during the first wave. And the results were presented yesterday at a local event organized together with the economy. And I was, let's say, surprised by the fact that 45% of the civil servants said that their efficiency was higher while teleworking, and 31% of the employees maintained the same efficiency as under normal conditions. That's according to them. And if I may turn to the question, what has been the biggest revelation about the government, I would like to explain a story when nobody knew it could be done, and then the one came that didn't know that, and he made it. So that, I believe, is the story of this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for these inspiring thoughts. Maybe we can turn now to Ms. Sindisiwe Chikunga.
Thank you very much, Ms. Elsa. Greetings to you and greetings to the panelists and our distinguished guests who are attending this important session online. Let me take this opportunity to commend the many countries, but particularly the developing countries in the regions and in the continent of Africa, on their rapid response to COVID-19 pandemic, despite limited resources. As you will know, Africa today has less than 202 million cases and less than 50,000 deaths, and current active cases are less than 300,000. And this therefore revealed to us the importance of decisive leadership and appropriate responses. which we are learning from even today, and we hope to institutionalize going forward. But also, I must mention that in our interaction and dealing with the pandemic, it revealed the importance of research and evidence-based decision-making or interventions. In this case, we depended on the empirical evidence that continued to be gathered through our science and also science laboratories assisted in the creation and adoption of innovative response mechanisms aimed at addressing the spread of the pandemic. It also revealed the importance of consultation, transparency, and accountability and reporting to the people, which assisted us to rebuild the trust and legitimacy of government and governance to the people in the continent and the people of South Africa. You will be aware that the first case was reported in December. In South Africa, between January and February, even before we had our first case, we put in place structures that included every institution and organization, whether government, private partners, civil organizations, academia, research institutions, to deal and to respond to the pandemic. And our first case then came on the 5th of February, of March. We already had the cases. But I must hasten to mention that also the pandemic revealed it exposed the inequalities that we have at world level. It increased unemployment in many of our countries. It weakened economies. It exposed absence of policies in dealing with such pandemics, and also to identify and detect early warning signs. But also it exposed the fragility of health systems. It also highlighted the importance of investing in research, development, as well as innovation, especially in the public service. But I must also mention the fact that even despite all these weaknesses and issues that we have raised, we believe that we tried our best to prevent the severity of the impact of the pandemic had we not acted well on time, including the lockdown that happened immediately after we had our first case. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we already have some learnings about some some unpreparedness from governments, and also some positives about productivity of employees in Slovenia, the importance of digital in Georgia. Mrs. Fonseca, what can you tell us about the experience in Portugal?
Good morning to all, Elsa, all my session colleagues, all the participants. Well, I think we all have learned quite the same things. We were prepared, and we were not quite as prepared in some areas. I think the main issue is that this crisis has revealed that it's fundamental, it's critical to have a particular state of mind when you are in office, when you are in government. And I think that in Portugal, what we have learned is mainly that all the investments we have been making over the years in innovation, in simplification, digitalization, in civic participation have proven to be right at this time, because they allowed us to react quickly and to put in place some measures in a very short period of time. Not only we migrated massively to the digital world, providing new digital services, but also we have been able to put around 70% of our public workers working from home, working remotely. So this, I think, confirmed something that we already knew for a very long time, that public administration is made of very responsible professionals who share a great sense of public duty and a set of important values such as solidarity, empathy, collaboration, and responsibility. So these values are defining us as a society, and today they are more important than ever. So I think that if we question ourselves, what have we been learning about the way our governments are built, and what kind of values do we uphold today? I think the first one is that there is no room to fail. So we must do what we must do. And when you have the responsibility to guarantee your society well-being, and so that your economy must keep running, you must build capacity for action, no matter the challenges are. And secondly, we must stop wanting to solve new problems with old solutions. We repeat this a lot because it's true. So governments must be capable of identifying challenges. No one could ever guess that this kind of pandemic should arrive with this magnitude and develop so quickly. But I think the main issue is that we must be prepared. So if we can build scenarios, we can replace reaction by proactiveness. And as the second and perhaps the third wave will arrive, this critical capability of proactiveness and experimental mindset and informal and formal collaboration is really the crucial capacity. So I think innovation is a core capability in our public administration and our government. And this is what makes the difference between being ready to act and being too slow and react perhaps too late. So this means that we must reinforce digitalization, but also to invest a lot in the capacity of our public servants to work no matter the environment in which they work from. So this is, I think, the main challenge and the main conclusion that we can derive from these months.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fonseca. Again, some important messages here, such as the importance of values, defining of society, the fact that we have no room to fail, that the public services have to step up very fast, and reaction from proactiveness, which I think is a great formula and a great transition to the first question. Governments have sometimes moved at great speed in their response to the pandemic, and yet at other times things have moved much more slowly. Of course, agility on the one hand and thoroughness or accountability processes on the other are not always easy to do at the same time. What has the crisis revealed about the speed of government and its ability to do things at scale and at speed? Maybe we start with in a different order with Slovenia first.
Thank you. Well, first of all, decisions had to be made quickly. So informed and coordinated, that's the key. And crisis management always requires a different way of responding than usual. As it was said by my Portuguese colleague, it's not the old way of solving new problems. So the spring period was a real stress test for the entire system of the state administration. And it was both for our processes, so flow of information, and competences of civil servants and, of course, also leaders. Crisis management is temporary, and when assessing measures suitable for transfer to regular operations, assessment of sustainability of benefits of individual measures is required. So we have to look at the benefits on the long run. And I think in order to be fast and agile, an internal debureaucratization of the system is also needed. It brings of course, greater responsibility for decision making and operational steps. So no formal instructions, civil servants have to accept responsibility. The crucial question, I believe, is whether there is enough trust between individuals, teams, units, authorities to allow more of the so-called self-organization, which is, I believe, something really usual in the private sector. And self-organization goes hand in hand with greater individual responsibility. And both can be strengthened systematically. The challenges of ensuring greater agility of the state administration while ensuring stability will also be addressed in the new strategies we are preparing. So Digital Slovenia and Digital Public Administration to 21 to 27. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe now Mrs. Tskitishvili.
With pleasure. So first of all, of course, we all had to act fast. And of course, I would also, one of the major things that we could also see in Georgia is that the civil service, which was sometimes considered by the population to be slow and bureaucratic, in fact, managed to be very effective and efficient in this during the crisis. And what really happened in all our public service, we ourselves also could feel finally that we are all part of the one unified public service, that we are all parts of the big public government, public administration, big government, and we cannot really work without each other. So this enhanced cooperation of all layers of the government, so administration, should it be the local administration or line ministries or any branches of the power which exist in the country, so they had to work with each other in order to ensure this greater speed and efficiency, and we managed to do that. So we managed to show our citizens, and just really, I could see that the trust of the government from the population really improved during this crisis time, because we also, along with the speed of the decision making, we also had to communicate very efficiently with our citizens. We had to make the civic participation and dialogue of businesses or representatives of all parts of our government in order to explain the decision, in order to make them part of this decision. And so this was actually a bit practical evidences of what we also were doing is a reform of our civil service and public administration, which we're pursuing during the years. So everything showed to be really necessary and effective. Of course, just to increase the speed, we had to change the practices in the purchases, and at the same time, of course, following the anti-corruption practices and transparency and competition, but we had to take really, I would just reflect what the colleague, agree with what my colleague said, from that we had to, of course, to bring more responsibility to all the civil servants. They had to make more responsible and fast decisions, and of course, they had just no other solution but just had to do so. We also had to make very innovative solutions, creating hotlines, databases, really trying to find some innovative solutions, new solutions to the things that we were used to do otherwise. But all this coordination between all branches of the power, taking more responsibility to the from all civil servants to themselves, and of course very effective communication between the branches of the power as well as our citizens provided us with the opportunity to be really efficient and in all the decisions that helped us to manage the pandemic.
Thank you very much. May now we turn to Mrs. Chikunga.
Thank you very much. Yes, we are the Department of Public Service and Administration in South Africa, and therefore we are responsible for setting norms and standards for our public servants. And immediately when we had this, we had to move with speed And it is also true that we're not ready for this pandemic. We had no experience of dealing with it. Hence, we had to decide first on the legislation that we're going to use, and we decided that we're going to use the legislation that has nothing to do much with pandemics, but of course, Disaster Management Act assisted us as a country in dealing with this. But also, we had to learn with speed to redefine the workplace. Remember when the president announced the lockdown, it actually meant that only the public servants that are providing frontline services and essential services were going to go to work. The rest were going to be at home. So initially it was just being at home without clear understanding as to what it is that those people that are at home will be doing. But we then had to redefine the workplace. We had some challenges because people had to be provided with tools of trade, which initially they didn't have, but we worked towards doing that and sending out important norms and standards guiding departments and the public service. But also we moved with speed, as I indicated earlier on, to form the structures for COVID-19 response pandemic, and even before the first case was announced in South Africa, and to move with speed to close some of our borders from people coming. But of course, on the 5th, like I indicated, on the 5th of March, we had our first case. And in March, on the 28th, the president announced the lockdown, and that was moving with speed. And it was at level 5, which actually meant that only the essential services were being provided. But that gave us time to plan for, and also to prevent and delay the peak of the infection, giving us time to plan for our services, particularly health services. But also we moved with speed to ensure that we are still able to do some work, and therefore first government where, in fact, we had to look at the issue of online services, working online and holding meetings online without us coming together. We had never thought that it was possible for us to hold meetings online like we're doing now. But the pandemic assisted us to actually acknowledge and realize the fact that it's possible, it can be done. But also we looked at, it gave us time to accelerate the building of field hospitals, working together with the private sector. Before the pandemic, private sector in South Africa would be focusing on its work without anything to do with the public sector. But this brought us together, and the private sector availed the services, and were able, therefore, to have more wards and beds for our patients, those that contracted the virus. And in the process, we took some decisions with speed, for instance, on procurement. For instance, because we had to procure PPEs, that is personal protective equipment, and without, in the main, following processes that exposed us to things such as corruption and so on, which we hastened to deal with and correct so that it could not just continue. But those are the things that came together with our speedy action in trying to deal with this, which was threatening the lives of our people. Actually, when we started to see people dying, everybody was panicking, but we had then to act as government and act with speed. And we think that assisted South Africa, even if we still had some deaths happening.
Thank you very much. And now Mrs. Fonseca.
Thank you. Well, the challenges are quite similar, so it's difficult not to repeat most of the things that my colleagues have already said. So I will try to perhaps focus on one particular issue. I think acting quickly with little information is quite a challenge. So in our experience, collaboration is the key to achieve this necessary balance between agility and thoroughness. And I'd like to stress out 3 kinds of collaboration that I think have been decisive in our capability to respond quickly and with efficiency. What are these 3 main types of collaboration that have proven to be effective? Firstly, collaboration with our citizens, with the civil society. This collaboration reinforces trust, and through information and through active collaboration with citizens and civil society organizations, we have been able to empower citizens to act and to react and to defend their rights and to collaborate with public services in reinforcing sanitary measures, and also to have the necessary trust in government to comply with their obligations. Secondly, collaboration between public sector organizations themselves to share knowledge, to share data, to be able to make informed choices and to react promptly. I think using technology to foster interoperability and the integration of services has been allowing us to provide the best possible experience to citizens and businesses during this time with high quality transactional services, which save time and other burdens, but also that keep running, keep existing during this period. And this bet in digitalization and digital services has proven to be a winning bet also. So this kind of collaboration using digital transformation of public services is a very important aspect, a very important dimension of collaboration. And finally, collaboration among our countries. So this kind of international cooperation allows us to tackle this challenge of working together to the provision of better and seamless services for our citizens and for businesses, also across borders. And this doesn't mean only to tackle these issues of the pandemic, but to keep the economy running. So this kind of collaboration is also very important. I must say that in Portugal, we have a long history of collaboration, and this allowed us to respond very quickly during this crisis. I'd like to stress out the example of our modernization flagship program, Simplex, because over the last 15 years, we have been developing digital services, and these services have been transforming people's lives and the way our businesses can do business. And things like electronic prescriptions or pre-filled tax declarations or homeschooling, for instance, are possible today, and were possible to have a large-scale implementation in a very short period of time because the backbone was prepared. We had all the infrastructure prepared. And also, during the first weeks of the crisis, we had public administration was able to implement around 200 simplification projects implemented by public services. And in this few weeks, we could have children having school at home, or we were able to expand telemedicine across the country, or we could set up temporary pop-up desks to deliver, for instance, identification documents. So I think, and this is what I would like to stress out, I think collaborative work is really the new normal for public administration, because it allows us to make better decisions, better use of resources, and also to understand complexity and be more effective in our collective action.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fonseca. Very interesting. And as you can see, we have some intermediary poll results, and panel participants actually agree with the assessments that the four of you are making. I mean, in terms of the priority areas for government, and And the themes that have emerged, I mean, the top, themes that are coming up first are digitalization of government services, as well as intergovernmental cooperation at all levels, followed by cross-sectoral collaboration in policy and service delivery. So that's really interesting. I think there's consensus around these three themes in the audience and in our panelists. Let me rebound also a little bit on what three of you have mentioned about trust. This is obviously an enormous issue. First, to implement policies today, I mean, compliance is dependent, compliance with confinement strategies is very much dependent on the level of trust. And the level of trust is also very much dependent on the quality of the policies and the quality of the public services. So I would like to link it also to one question that we've received from the audience about the sustainability of these improvements in government services and the higher speed. Is it sustainable in the longer run? And do you think also that the expectations now from citizens will be higher in the future? And finally, and this is an all-encompassing question, is what role has citizen trust in government played in your country context? Has it aided, has it made it easier, or has it made it harder to implement decisions during the COVID-19 pandemic? Maybe we start this time with Mrs. Chikunga.
Thank you very much. Maybe the very last one, the role of trust that citizens had in government, I think it was important. I've seen people wearing masks in the East. It has never been practiced in South Africa and even in the continent per se. But the manner in which information was being shared with the people and the manner in which it looked very correct, people began to trust government and to trust the message that was coming from the government, particularly in South Africa, that whatever message was from the Minister of Health, as well as the president himself, it said to the people, we regard this as a serious pandemic, and it is for the reason that it is being communicated to people by the highest office, that of the president. And that indeed brought some trust and legitimacy of the messages that were coming from government. And the response of people was amazing, including the public sector. Our malls, you know, when we said nobody should go to any shop without a mask, malls responded and ensured that nobody goes to any mall for that matter, not just a shop. And that assisted us in minimizing the spread, not actually preventing it because it continued to spread, but it minimized. So yes, the legitimacy and trust was overwhelming. And we could actually see that as we're scaling down the levels of lockdown, that as we say, we're moving to this lower level and people will respond by thinking that the virus is no longer there because they were trusting. And we therefore had to emphasize the point that it is only the levels that we're going down in terms of lockdown, but not the virus itself. So yes, there was that. Whether we will be sustaining this, of course, there's quite a lot that we have learned lessons from. For instance, these online conferences. In South Africa, even Parliament today, it's a hybrid. Some will sit in the house, but others will be online. And that is giving us the opportunity, even as government, to be able to attend Parliament as ministers or deputy ministers and still be able to do our work, because as you will know, our parliament is in Cape Town and you have to fly to Cape Town. We've been doing that, but now we're able to be in our departments and attend parliament and do some work immediately after the parliament has. And I think it's something that we'll be able to sustain going forward. Other things, of course, they will need some intervention for them to continue because they could only apply under the Disaster Management Act. And if you have to continue with them, you've got to amend some legislations and policies, but it's just few of those issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Maybe now Mrs. Fonseca.
Thank you, Elsa. Well, I think I already spoke a little bit about trust. I think this is a key issue. And trust is really the cornerstone of our governance models and our democratic regimes. So it's natural that trust is really the perhaps what makes the difference between the success and the unsuccess of our measures in this time of pandemic crisis. I think trust begins with communication. And communication and participation are the two main challenges that we have been dealing with. So a massive communication campaign was set up in the early days of the pandemic. And this focus on strong communication has been driving our action through these months. We devised a campaign with a motto: "We are on," because government didn't stop at any time, in any moment. And we had an online website and an app in which citizens could find and still can find information of all the mechanisms that government has been making available in response to the pandemic, and along with more than 30 initiatives with the same scope developed by private partners, the civil society, and several citizen initiatives. So citizens know where to find information, and this is a major asset when we have to take very fast measures. In these times, when, as I said previously, we had to increase the ongoing digital transformation of our government services, we have been forcing ourselves not to forget that this digital transformation of public service is a human-centered transformation. So besides giving information, we must involve people, we must involve citizens in some choices with concerning some measures. So we have been trying to involve citizens in the discussion of what is socially acceptable and what kind of measures are appropriate to take, and what kind of, for instance, digital tools society needs or wants to accept. So one of our core responsibilities, I think, is to reinforce this process of collective decision and to make citizens more aware of the way they can ensure fundamental rights in the digital world, because everything is possible through technology, but not everything is socially acceptable. So this debate around the ethical use of technology is also a debate that is ongoing, and it's central to the discussion of how far governments must go when they have to take measures that sometimes are difficult to communicate and to be understood by people. So this is really a big issue, because we believe that citizen participation is much more than improving customer experience. It's really the way to build better democracies and better cohesive, more cohesive societies. And this is a big issue for us today.
Thank you very much, and very interesting. I'm also looking at the poll, and regarding you mentioned, data governance, privacy, and all these issues. I'm actually surprised to see that it's only a concern for 17.2% of our today. I mean, it's not emerging as a key theme. So it's interesting. Probably also testifies to a high level of trust. Mrs. Tskitishvili, what are the lessons in your country regarding trust? I mean, do you have also similar experiences related to this engagement of citizens and public communication?
Yes, as I already mentioned, so actually the trust and consolidation, I would say, of the whole society was a key for Georgian success. And really the way how the government communicate with its citizens help to build this type of trust. So when there are no crises in the country, so as we all can see, so there are some distance, I would say, between the governments and the public in the general, in the peaceful times. But when there is a time of crisis, so you simply cannot make effective and speedy decisions without trust and without the confidence from the public and without the fact that public really follows the decisions of the government. In fact, just to share the information, we didn't have any type of public protests of any type of decisions that the government was making. And it showed actually that this trust was trust and again, the consolidation. I would even say that it was not just trust, but we, from the very beginning, we tried to do the things together. So from the very first days of the crisis, we tried to explain and educate our public of any type of information that government knew itself. So we never hid any type of even very difficult information from our public. So we're really educating them with participation of our epidemiologists, with all the specialists in that very new and novel field for everyone. And this type of public education and awareness raising, and also the fact that we were very transparent, very honest, also helped us to build this confidence. So we had the situations where we had made some decisions for some lockdown, but then we had some reaction from the public, and we never were afraid actually to admit the mistake or maybe admit the fact that we could do the things otherwise, and we make some corrective actions. And this exchanging of the feedback from the public also really contributed to this participatory approach to the decision making, and all the dialogues that I was also mentioning, and my colleagues were glad to hear the country social was going through the same process, really contributed to the building of the trust. And this is the only way how we can actually continue working as a public administration. Regarding your question for the sustainability of the policies, yes, of course, the policies that and actions that we did, many of them will be really sustainable. So many changes that we made, including the remote working, not just in the public service, but also in the private sector. Many of us could see finally that we had a lot of a big room for efficiency, that we can do the things now otherwise. And I would say that it's not just a matter of sustainability of the decisions that we already did, but these new decisions actually showed us the perspective of new developments in many areas of the way how we were doing the things before. And we already have altered some ways how we are looking for the education, how we look for the social policies, for the development of different areas of the economy. For example, tourism is one of the major economic drivers in Georgia, and we unfortunately could see that the tourism was really affected with the crisis. So now all our tourism sector is really finding the ways how they can become more stress resilient. And of course, this type of innovative approaches will definitely bring new perspectives to the public administration as well. And of course, it sets a new standard. So regarding your third question, if the public will have, if our general public will have higher expectation, of course they already do. Of course, they already request more explanations, more communication, more proactive actions and communication from the government. And the fact that we did educated them and raised awareness about all the forecasts and epidemiological issues and the way how we do prepare ourselves for the next waves of the crisis. Of course, this increases their involvement, increases their participation, and I would say that it sets new standard for the public administration, new much higher level of requirements from the regular citizens as well as non-governmental organization. And of course, in fact, as I mentioned from the very beginning, the core principles of the public administration both the competence, the responsibility, openness, transparency, and this very important participatory approach now shows that this was not just just words, but it was real needs that had to be embedded in all this type of relation. And I think that this crisis really showed to everyone that the public administration can really work in a different way. And of course, citizens, and now we have the new reality in these areas as well.
Thank you very much, and very interesting new standards for public administration. I think a major opportunity, if we can call it this way, in this crisis for renovation of democracy, for renovation of policy making, a renovation of service delivery. Mr. Koritnik, what is your view about all this?
Thank you. I believe trust is extremely important for the leadership in any organization. As in the business sector, you can have the best product. If you're not capable of selling it, it's not the best. So the same goes for any measure taken in this crisis by any government. Unfortunately, the importance of trust made it harder for us. Our government did face a couple of challenges. However, fake news was also a factor. So the key to obtain trust is to involve experts, doctors, epidemiologists, instead of us, the so-called bureaucrats. And also, with this regard, we should not forget digital literacy. I believe enabling the correct information to get to the people will, of course, improve trust. You also gave a question regarding the returning to the old ways of life. I believe digital transformation is to be further improved. Nothing in the public sector. The way we use the public service, the way we offer them will not be the same. So it goes the same for offering. We had an experience when we first started in the first wave with the remote work. Civil servants were mostly opposing that. They didn't want to work from home. They had a lot of problems with it, second thoughts. And after the first wave, the picture was turned around. They all wanted to at least combine the remote work with the work from the office. So I believe nothing will be the same, and this was a revolution in the way of using and offering public service.
Thank you very much. I believe the responses by the four of you actually respond to some of the questions that we had from the audience so far regarding, can governments respond with the same speed when the issue is not as immediate? I think you've all talked here about the sustainability of the practices, the fact that you have upgraded for the long run the services, that there are higher standards now for the public service. So I think we have responded to that one. Another question. The crisis has showcased very clearly, and probably for the first time so clearly, the interconnectedness and complexity of issues in today's world, both interconnectedness, the health issue with the social and economic situation, obviously, but also interconnectedness at the global level, and what's happening in one country has immediate consequences on what's happening in another country. Yet today, decisions are made on policies designed in ways that are not necessarily always appropriate for the complex and interconnected world we live in. What has the crisis revealed to you in that setting, and what can be done to ensure that policymaking reflects and embraces these complexities across sectors, first of all, but also across countries? Maybe we start this time with Mrs. Tskitishvili again.
With pleasure. So as I already mentioned, so for example, our tourism industry. really was one of our major drivers of our economic growth. It's about 18% of our national GDP. So that's why all the external shocks or just closing the borders between the countries, of course, affected this sector the most. And definitely development of the tourist industry in the whole world, I believe, as well as Georgia, has faced absolutely new reality. So in addition to the fact that they had to adapt themselves to the new standards of customer service, of course, they also have to see what are the potential new niches or new sectors or new opportunities for their development. And for example, when there was still reduced mobility and number of visitors, of course, was not as high as we could all expect in this year, we promoted very much the internal tourism. And we also made it as part of our communication campaign, where in the fact of our internal participation and consolidation of the whole society, so where we were also promoting it as a part of our citizens' contribution to the saving the sector or develop the sector and help them to overcome these very difficult times. So this, again, cooperation and collaboration between the government and the sector, in addition, of course, to all the anti-crisis packages, all the concessions for the tax payments and all anti-crisis packages that we all did, but I'm not talking just now expressly on the economic packages or compensation packages, but mainly the way how we can restructure our attitudes of doing different types of business. So we also could see that our real estate development sector, which was also one of the key drivers of our economy, was of course affected with this very high level of uncertainty, and of course our very intensive government package, as well as changed the attitude of our society, which despite the high level of uncertainty, had spent some months living in one closed apartment. So now we could see that there is also the perspective for the development of different type of segments in that field. Of course, we promoted and helped these trends by supporting different type of benefits for those who will be purchasing new apartments. We are just subsidizing some interest rate for the new families who will be purchasing new fields. It's just examples of what can be done in that area. But what's really important is that interlinkages between the countries is very important, especially for the countries of like Georgia. Just to remind you, we are a very small country with a population of just 3.7 million of people living in this country. We are very open. Our economy is very open. We are mainly relying on trade, on tourism, and of course this breaking of logistical chains, this closing of the borders, which we could all see on the very first time of the crisis, of course affected the prospects for development. But we also try to think about all these changes as new opportunities. And just for example, with these changes, the change in logistical networks and logistics change, we offered also new opportunities and new stimulus packages for the foreign businesses who would like to move to Georgia, to move their production to Georgia. So we have now the special packages for FDIs in order to promote the relocation of businesses to Georgia. We also offered some new opportunities for the visitors, long-term visitors to country, which would love to spend the second or third wave of pandemic in Georgia. And of course, we are also looking for the opportunities for development of our agriculture sector, for the IT sector, all the sectors of economy which could work in the remote mode, and of course, which can use all the advantages that we had with this open and vibrant community. So the way, just to summarize and sum up, so one is that of course we have all to see how our interlinkages affect each other, and also the our foreign relations now just cover not just Euro-Atlantic integration issues, but also the way how we act together in the time of the pandemics when we have this type of difficulties. And what my colleague Ms. Fonseca mentioned, so this collaboration between the country becomes even more important in that field. But of course, it also provides each country the opportunity to reassess our priority, our strategies, and also to uncover new opportunities.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fonseca.
Elsa. Perhaps I will answer focusing on my current area of responsibility, and my answer also perhaps relates to the previous question on sustainability of these major transformations that we are undergoing. From the perspective of public administration as a major player in public policy making. So what I can say to reinforce what my colleagues also have been sharing with us is that even before this crisis, I think all our governments were beginning to realize that it takes a comprehensive and holistic approach to accomplish all of our missions. And when we are driving to reach for a global agenda such as the 2030 agenda and the SDGs, we all have to embrace a whole of government perspective. So the COVID-19 pandemic crisis just underlined this obvious need, I think. And this is our vision in Portugal. Perhaps I can tell you a little bit more about the roadmap that we have set to make transformation sustainable and to have a more effective capacity building in our public sector organizations. We have set up a strategy for innovation and modernization of the state and public administration in the beginning of this year. And what we have envisioned has survived the test of the pandemic because it has proven to be right. And what I think that we must embrace in order to have this resilience and the capacity to have policy making that reflects the complexities of all the policy areas in our time. I think we have to focus on four interconnected axes. And these are really quite simple and quite effective and quite obvious also, I think. The first is to invest in people, in our workers, because by empowering people and developing the skills of public workers and their leadership to have different organizational models and different working models is really a critical issue, because this allows us to have strong, responsive and resilient institutions. So this is one of the axes, people. The second is to develop our management capacity, simplification and innovation in management and collaborative work models, as I said before, and making sure that our decision-making process use data and knowledge across functional silos in order to achieve results in complex issues is another key area of our focus. And then to explore technology, of course, because it allows us to enhance the transformations in everyday operation of the public sector organization. So we are pushing for global technology governance and improving interoperability and service integration and managing the data ecosystem safely and transparently. And by integrating people, people's skills and developing management and exploring technology, we achieve, and this is the fourth and final axis, we achieved reinforced proximity. And because we believe that we perform better and foster inclusiveness if we are closer to all people in all our territories. So being digital doesn't mean we are absent from physical places. And these 4 axes, I think, allow us to be aware of the technical and organizational and individual conditions that provide sound policy making, and that allows us to embrace all the complexities of policy making challenges in our times, which are obviously reinforced by our current crisis, pandemic crisis.
Thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Chikunga, maybe?
Thank you very much. Yes, in responding to the interlinkages of public outcomes, we believe that it's important to work together. Evidence-based planning and evidence-based performance planning, which is time-bound. And we also believe that monitoring, effective and efficient monitoring and evaluation is important and continues to be important. And in doing that, as many countries will have probably the same system, our public services are decentralized. And decentralization, whilst it promotes accountability, but it does have the potential of embedding silos approach. And it is in this era where we realized the importance and were forced to actually work together as different levels of government in forming structures, but also in even spending the resources that are there. And we think it's something that we'll have to take forward. But also now at the stage, as we are scaling down the levels of lockdown, in fact, we've stopped it now. We are therefore improving on the movement of people and goods. And we're doing this with the aim of growing our economy, but also in growing our tourism sector. But also we are trying to reverse the negative impact the pandemic had on the aviation sector. As you will know, many of the flights were not moving. We're also in trying to interlink with our partners elsewhere in the world. We are using technology as we are doing now, which help us to interact closely, despite maybe are not able to move, but to still continue to interact with our partners, whether they are trading partners or our strategic partners. But also in the African continent, in fact, in South Africa, we had to work and to collaborate beyond borders to enable a regional and a continental response. And our President Cyril Ramaphosa is the chair of the African Union. He announced an initiative where the African Medical Supplies Portal was actually announced to serve as a single continental marketplace where African countries could access critical medical supplies, and they still continue to do that, such as test kits from suppliers and manufacturers in Africa and around the world in the necessary quantities and at competitive prices. And this platform complemented the work that is being done to ensure that sufficient medical supplies and equipment, personal protective equipment and hospital facilities are available to manage the anticipated increase in COVID-19 patients, and knowing and taking this into account, the fact that this is a communicable and therefore infectious diseases, we had to ensure that we have all these measures put in place. And also at a continental level, this created an opportunity to test the implementation of the progressive Africa Free Trade Agreement through creation of the Africa Medical Supply Portal. And we think that going forward, we'll therefore be able to implement this, because that gave us the opportunity to test it practically than just to be theorizing about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Koritnik.
Thank you. I could not agree more with what the colleagues before me said. I think people-centered processes and public service as a whole, and using the technology to help us with that. I think that is the key. Regarding the linkage all the systems, I believe real cooperation will be even more crucial in the future. It is based on, as already said, trust and open dialogue, and the focus is on the challenge. It needs to be addressed systematically, solving the central problem and not its symptoms. And a simple rule is one system cannot solve challenges in isolation. We have acknowledged that already in the past. It's nothing revolutionary, and never before, however, has this connection been so crucial to the future of us all. And I believe we have to look partially and systematically and find a solution. A decade ago, I read an article saying that happiness in the public sector is the key to its efficiency, and I believe that was before the time, and now we can see that dedication, devotion, and empowerment of the public service, that is the key also for the efficiency of our service.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much. So we have about 4 minutes left, and I have one further question for all of you, and I will mix it also with a question that is coming from the audience that I think is a great final question. So the question of the audience is as follows: what are the 3 keywords of changes that the pandemic has brought in the functioning of the public governance system, according to you? And then the second question that we had prepared, that is asked throughout the event today, is what are you personally committed to doing differently in light of what has been revealed by the crisis? Maybe Mrs. Fonseca, we start with you.
Okay, 1 minute, right? It's a challenge. Well, I think no matter how agile and responsive our governments may be, this is an open-ended process. So to foster this process, we must engage with citizens and civil servants in innovation. And we must seize all the opportunities from deploying digital technology to conduct a human-centered transformation of public services. So I think if you ask me what is my vision and what am I personally committed to, well, a public sector digital transformation focused on people, driven by people's choices through institutions, and with ethical and responsible use of technology. This is, I don't know if I spend all my minutes, but I'd like to say that if we bet and if we have reinforced commitment to these keywords, people's choices, ethical use of technology, and also the public workers' ability and drive, motivation to create public value on a permanent basis, we may just emerge from this pandemic crisis with the greater social cohesion and also to a greener and stronger economy.
Thank you, Mr. Koritnik.
Thank you. I believe the key is more empowerment to the civil servants to be able and encouraged to self-organize and to be more efficiency result-driven. On the government side, it has to enable ongoing continuous education and find a way to attract and keep the talents, and then enable those young talents to cooperate with the more experienced civil servants. So enable a mix of innovativeness and let's say old classical ways of thinking.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chikunga.
Thank you very much. I think I want to thank our frontline workers who were prepared to serve our people and who were prepared to get infections, who some succumbed to death to this virus. I think all over the world, they proved that they can actually provide services to the people of all the countries, but to the people of South Africa. We thank them immensely for the sacrifices that they made at the time when everybody was actually afraid and scared. But also our people, they are an important asset, they are an important resource. They need just to be informed and they respond positively to their leadership and to their governments. I think we have to invest more on technology, on research, on innovation, and to have policies that in future will be able to pick up some of the signs of such pandemics before they happen. I think working together as countries and working together as the world and leaving no one behind, we will achieve a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now Deputy Prime Minister, Mrs. Tskitishvili.
So first of all, answering your question, so I would say the three major words. So it's government and public consolidation. So it's consolidation, consolidating of our efforts, government efficiency, which we could all see that is crucially important, and of course innovation in ways how we do things. And thinking about innovation and also coming back to your question of what we could do differently. So I think that the major challenge that we have now is also coming to new normal. So if before we have a different type of public administration, which was working in these offices, we had the opportunity to meet and greet our people, inspire them on day-to-day basis. Now we have to do the same in the remote mode. And this is really not the easiest tasks. And I think that many of our human resource managers in public administration will now have new task of how to assess the work of our public administrations, how to the new task for the leaders and leadership and management, how to inspire people when they are coming to the new normal routine. So it's easy to inspire people when they are all involved in the war with the pandemic, when they are all involved in the crisis management. But I think that new challenge is just to come back to the new normal after pandemic. Also keeping in mind that we will have the second wave, the third wave, and maybe other waves until we all find the global solution for the pandemic. So I think this is one of the new challenges for the public administration. So how to inspire people, how to keep the public administration efficient, motivated, and at the same time, how to keep them happy, as my colleague mentioned. So once again, I would like to thank all of you for a very interesting session. And of course, thank once again OECD for all the efforts that you made for increasing the capacities of Georgian public administration, which we could all see that were very successful during this pandemic time. So thank you to you and to the colleagues.
Many thanks to the four of us. We're just finishing now. I mean, we are just 2 minutes above time. I take a lot of messages of hope from this session, which was extremely interesting. I also thank you for such a well-behaved panel in terms of timing. It's quite amazing. So thank you to the four of us. I take from this panel, you know, the human-centered public service, digital, ethical, more empowerment of civil servants, of course, information, investing in technology, research, innovation, government consolidation, efficiency, innovation, all great messages of hope for the future and for a major upgrade of our public services and the public policies. Thanks again. It's been a great pleasure moderating this panel. I wish you the best. As the Secretary General of the OECD said this morning, you're on the hot spot right now. As ministers, as state secretaries, deputy prime ministers, it's very difficult. So good luck to the four of you and have a very good day.
Thank you and good luck to all.
Thank you and stay healthy.